Thanks. Welcome for joining the CEO AMA. If you have any questions you want to keep private, feel free to add them under the private header and we can take the stream offline at some point. Jeff has the first question. Jeff, you want to verbalize it? And thanks for asking the first question.
Yeah, the UX research team, we just completed sort of a pretty dramatic reorganization of our handbook pages. And as I was going through that the other day, it started thinking about kind of how the handbook is going to evolve. And once we're a much larger company with many more people, and I imagine much more information that we need to sort of keep track of, how the handbook itself will evolve. And so I was curious to get your take on that of like, what is the handbook going to look like in 2 years? Both in terms of content, but also in terms of presentation, functionality, and so forth.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I think it will still be organized functionally, kind of per department. It seems to be the only thing that allows us to keep it up to date. I think we'll have more media, more multimedia, more videos linked and embedded in the content, more courses. Like, hey, you like the content on this page? Do the course material about this, get the certification. Maybe we'll have more community engagement where there's like reactions below every handbook page. I'd love something like that, like an easier way for people to interact. But we have a private handbook now for stuff that can be public, which I think will get increasing usage over time. Right now, a lot of that information is in Google Docs. We should get it to the handbook. I think we'll get better at organizing it, have fewer kind of grab bag or junk drawer pages that have all kinds of information. Yeah, but that would be the things that come to mind, but I think we'll still have it. And I think it will be over 10,000 pages. I think we'll have multiple people doing their PhD thesis about it. Christina, thanks for asking question 2.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Sid. So I'm curious if you have come across or heard about yet GitLab being used to create and store learning content in the same exact manner that we do with the handbook. And the idea is that all courseware is stored in a repository. And not only the course authors, but subject matter experts and people who are taking the course can contribute through Git and merge requests. And some of our customers and also our education program members have extended this approach to do DevOps testing with code that students are writing and award auto badges and different really exciting things. And so I wondered if that's come across your radar yet and what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not sure I'm completely understanding the questions, but I'll give a few points of view. First of all, I think 9 out of 10 companies are probably going to use a wiki to store their knowledge base. I think because it's so much more user-friendly, I do think that a system that has explicit version control and explicit proposals like merge requests will scale much better. So I think we're on the forefront there. I'm not sure how many people will reuse it, but I think people will reuse it. I've seen our handbook becoming course material. For example, in South Korea, there were students who were assigned pages in our handbook as part of their courses. Did I address your question? You want to elaborate on what you want to hear about?
No, I'm trying to link an issue in there, but I'm not able. The doc is frozen, but basically...
you can put it in the chat.
Sure. And I can post that to the CEO channel later and share it with you as well. But specifically, the idea is that all of the learning content itself is stored as code in a repository. And so when you're editing and delivering and building the content, it builds the same way as the handbook. So it really brings Git and distributed editing to learning content management. I think it's a pretty revolutionary approach of kind of extending what we've done with the handbook to the idea of building learning content.
Yeah, for sure. I'm very excited about this. for example, we have a lot of courses that are about content that's in our handbook. And instead of kind of copy pasting the content over in the course system and now having two sources of truth, we're just going to say, okay, read this handbook page. And now you have the test in the courseware system. I've not seen a company do that effectively. It's like a mind warp. Like everyone who's worked with an LMS before is like, needs to hear it 3 times. But I think what I've seen in other companies is that the content in the learning management system becomes stale over time, both because it's outdated, but also because it has only one person contributing to it. There's this person who's it's not their core job to kind of do this function. Their core job is to make the training materials. And you get kind of a blend version of what it's actually like. It's almost like a journalist writing an article about a subject versus like reading it from someone in the field themselves. You lose all kinds of like very helpful nitty-gritty details. And I think we can have the best of both worlds by saying, hey, our learning and development people are like helping to restructure our handbook to make sure that it's laid out appropriately, that there's videos recorded and everything else, but it's still in the core. It's still accessible. It's still everyone can contribute. Still, every team member at GitLab, everyone in the world can make a proposal to improve the materials. And I think that's very rare for course materials. And I think that's really exciting. And I love this courseware as code, which seems like an extension of that.
Yes, it was coined by the Army Corps of Engineers, and there's information. We're doing a case study. Allison Mueller is the strategic account leader there, and there's some really cool stats that they have on how many people were able to contribute to their courseware. So I'd encourage you to take a look at it, because I think you'd find it really interesting. And I'm kind of obsessed with it, as you can tell. So I would love to talk with you about it at some point later.
Yeah, that's really cool. 175 people contributing, 26 commits per instructor. That's really cool. Awesome to see people using it like that.
Cool. I think I have like a little bit of a follow-up question to that, Sid, as well, just with the, we're getting the learning experience platform, which is basically an LMS. And I'm just curious, how do you think the LXP will play a role in, scaling learning at GitLab and, being handbook first? Like, how do you envision, it incorporating into our business, essentially?
Yeah. So the number one complaint of people onboarding at GitLab is like, it's overwhelming. And that's because we have an 8,000 page handbook and we try to get people to read all the relevant parts when they're onboarding. It is not the right time. You want continuous learning. And I think an LMS system will allow us to give people guidance as they are at GitLab, what they should do. And I think people at the company are highly motivated. If you say like, hey, this is now the certifications we recommend you do, I think they're open to that. So instead of having 250 checkboxes in your onboarding issue, let's make sure that's under 100, and let's make sure there's monthly, weekly, yearly programs on how to do it. And let's make sure that it becomes almost like doctors, where you just have to get 10 certifications a year to stay current at GitLab. You got to keep learning. So that's like, I think, the big benefit to team members. Less overwhelming onboarding, but continuous certification, I'm going to call it. And then the second big benefit is that it's all public. It's accessible to anyone. I think we'll have 1,000 times as many certifications handed out to people who are not team members than to team members. And I think that will drive a lot of awareness about GitLab and create a lot of momentum around the company and our products.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely think it will help us really scale learning and help us reduce some of those manual tasks associated with the certifications and sending them out and using Google Forms and all those things. So that's great to hear. Thanks.
Thanks. Mike Miranda?
Hi, Sid. Good to see you. I'm curious if there's been any leadership skills or lessons that you've had to adjust or unlearn as GitLab has grown.
Yeah, for sure. Many of them. I don't know what's top of mind is right now. I have to do like a formal performance evaluation once a quarter for my reports. And it's uncomfortable to do that. And it's something I'd rather not do because it's hard. It's hard to sit down, think through it, look at the data, and come out with something. You know, it's going to be challenged, and it's important to get it right. So this is the first time I'm going to do that per quarter, and I'm struggling with it. I'm kind of conveniently forgot about it. So now I asked Sherry to book a few meetings where it'll be her and me, and I'll in a meeting, and I'll be forced to actually do it. So that's what's top of mind. I think there's many things. I think the most important thing has been like the power of choosing the right metric. And it's not so much about choosing like the right number, but it's choosing the right dimension for the metric. And so with product, I'm spending a lot of time on getting GMAO right. With engineering, we're now talking about MAR. With sales, we're now transitioning from IACV to Delta ARR. With marketing, we're now going to have one consistent measure of closed won attributed per cost. Like getting those core metrics right is so important to help the organization do the right thing, almost like not automatically, but it gives them their own compass, and you don't continually need to point out the direction. Like they'll have a compass and they can just figure the direction out by themselves. But it's surprising how hard that is, and maybe not so surprising. I don't think there's a ton of companies doing it right because it's so hard. Great question, by the way. Thank you.
Thanks.
I see no questions, so I'll stop